Welcome, dear friend, and thank you ever so kindly for choosing to spend a little of your precious time with us here, in this quiet corner of the airwaves. It is always a rather special sort of pleasure, much like finding an unexpected patch of sun-warmed grass on a cool day, to know that our stories might offer a moment of gentle repose in your day, or indeed, as evening draws in, a soft pathway towards tranquility. Our fondest wish, you see, with this particular story, the cadence of warm earth awakening, is to weave a tapestry of such gentle sounds and soothing sights, such comforting feelings and quiet wonders, that it might act as a soft lullaby for the mind, helping to quiet the bustling thoughts of the day and inviting a deep, peaceful sleep to come and find you. So, before you perhaps nestle down and allow your device to rest beside you, if you find a little warmth and comfort in what unfolds, a simple tap to like this story, or a gentle click to subscribe to our channel would be a most welcome kindness, encouraging us to continue sharing these peaceful little journeys. Chapter 1. The Whispering Threshold. It was not by any map marked with bold lines or grand pronouncements that the wanderer found the way, but rather by a subtle, almost shy invitation from the world itself. A delicate thrumming felt more in the sole of their well-worn boots than heard with the ear. For many a gentle turning of the sun and moon, they had moved through lands that offered their own quiet beauty. Yet a certain weariness, as fine and persistent as dust from a long unopened room, had settled deep within. And so, when the very ground beneath began to whisper of a warmth that was not of the sun alone, a gentle, rhythmic hum that seemed to call to the quietest parts of the heart, the wanderer, ever receptive to such soft beckonings, turned their path toward its source. The air, which had been clear and cool like an early spring morning, began to soften, to hold a certain comforting weight, much like a favorite old blanket being drawn up to the chin. With each step forward, this subtle warmth grew, not with any haste, but with the reassuring constancy of a slow tide turning. It was a warmth that seemed to rise from the very bones of the earth, a gentle exhalation from a world breathing deeply and peacefully. The light, too, began to transform. Where before it had been crisp, it now filtered through the increasingly broad leaves of unfamiliar trees, as if strained through spun honey, casting no sharp edges, no stark contrasts, only a diffused golden peace that settled upon everything like a benediction. The sounds of the wider world, the distant call of a bird, or the rustle of wind in common grasses began to fade, absorbed by a quietude so profound it felt as if the vale itself were gently cupping its hands over the wanderer's ears, hushing the unnecessary. A faint scent, at first no more than a fleeting thought of comfort, began to weave itself into the golden air. It was a fragrance of something wholesome and good, like the memory of bread baking in a distant kind kitchen, mingled with the clean, damp aroma of freshly turned earth after a soft rain. This delicate perfume was an invitation in itself, a promise of simple sustenance and profound rest. The wanderer paused, drawing a slow, deep breath, feeling a subtle thrumming now not just in their feet, but as a gentle resonance in their very chest, a quiet harmony beginning to form between their own tired rhythm and the ancient steady pulse of this hidden place. The path, if it could be called such, was no more than a slightly softer depression in the yielding, moss-like ground leading between trees, whose bark was smooth and surprisingly warm to the touch. The entrance to what could only be the vale of resonant heartwood was not marked by any grand archway or carved stone, but by a subtle deepening of the quiet, a more pronounced warmth in the air, and the way the light seemed to coalesce into pools of liquid gold upon the plush, springy ground. It felt like stepping from a merely quiet room into one filled with the deep, contented sigh of sleep itself. The foliage here was extraordinary, composed of broad, pliable leaves in shades of muted olive, deep forest green and soft, earthy siennas, each one looking as if it would be wonderfully soft to the touch. They swayed with an almost imperceptible slowness, not in response to any breeze, for the air was remarkably still, but in time with that deep, terrestrial hum. The wanderer took another step, and then another, feeling the ground yield gently like the finest, deepest carpet. The sensation was one of welcome, of being received into a place that had been waiting with patient kindness. The weight of the journey, the unspoken weariness that had been a constant companion, seemed to lighten, as if the very air of the vale, so rich with peace and warm earth scents, was beginning to draw it out, replacing it with something altogether lighter, altogether more serene. It was as if they had unknowingly carried a small, unnoticed stone in their pocket for a very long time, and had only just now set it down upon soft earth, feeling the immediate, surprising relief. A sense of leaving the outer world, with all its unspoken demands and subtle frictions, settled upon the wanderer not as a loss but as profound gaining. It was like carefully closing a well-loved but very heavy book at the end of a long day of reading. The sounds that did exist here were of a different quality entirely. The almost inaudible whisper of the great leaves brushing against one another, the faintest sigh as the ground settled, the distant muffled murmur of what might be slow-moving water. Each sound was a thread in a tapestry of utter tranquility, weaving a sense of safety, of being enfolded in something ancient and deeply comforting. The wanderer found a naturally formed seat at the base of one of the warm-barked trees, a smooth outgrowth of root that seemed to have been shaped for just such a purpose. Sitting down, they could feel the gentle thrum of the earth more clearly, a slow, steady beat that seemed to invite their own heart to slow its pace, to find a more restful cadence. The air was still, yet felt alive with unseen, gentle energies, and the scent of baking bread, though still distant, was now a more definite promise, a beacon of simple comfort in this haven of deep repose. Here, on the threshold, the world felt hushed and wonderfully, profoundly still. A small creature, perhaps a dormouse with fur the color of toasted hazelnuts, peeked from a crevice in the tree, its whiskers twitching as it regarded the wanderer with round, incurious eyes, before vanishing again with a flick of its tiny tail. It was a fleeting moment, yet it spoke of the vale's inherent peace, a place where even the smallest inhabitants felt secure enough to show themselves without alarm. The wanderer smiled, a slow, gentle curving of the lips, feeling a kinship with that small, untroubled being. This, they felt with a quiet certainty, was a place to simply be, a sanctuary where the only expectation was to rest and to allow the deep, warm heart of the world to cradle them. Chapter 2. The First Resonance. Venturing onward from that first gentle welcome, the wanderer moved with steps that grew ever more unhurried, each footfall a soft press into the yielding, moss-like ground that seemed to cushion every movement, absorbing any hint of jarring impact. The pathway, still more of a feeling than a clearly defined track, meandered deeper into the vale, and with each winding turn, the presence of the earth's cadence became more distinctly perceptible. It was no longer just a subtle warmth or a faint thrumming beneath the soles of their boots. Now, it felt like a vast, gentle wave of energy, rising and falling with an imperturbable slowness, a steady, ancient rhythm that seemed to underpin the very fabric of this sheltered land. It was as if one were walking upon the chest of some great, kindly, sleeping giant, feeling the slow, reassuring beat of its peaceful heart. The air itself seemed to vibrate with this gentle pulse, carrying the comforting scent of warm earth and the faintest hint of something sweet and spicy, like old beloved recipe books left open in a sunny kitchen. The light filtered through the enormous soft leaves of the canopy above, dappled the ground in shifting patterns of old gold and shadowed emerald, each patch of light holding a tangible warmth. The wanderer reached out a hand, letting their fingers trail across the surface of a broad, velvety leaf. It felt wonderfully soft, like stroking the ear of a gentle deer, and even the leaf itself seemed to pulse with a faint, responsive warmth, echoing the greater rhythm of the vale. Presently, the meandering way opened into a small sun-dappled alcove, a little hollow gently cupped by the land. Here, the warmth emanating from the earth was noticeably more pronounced, and the rhythmic pulse felt clearer, more defined, as if this were a place where the vale's heartbeat was particularly close to the surface. A collection of smooth gray stones, warmed by the unseen geothermal breath and the filtered sunlight, lay scattered like sleeping sheep. The wanderer chose one, a large flat stone that seemed to invite repose, and settled upon it, feeling the comforting warmth seep slowly into their weary limbs, a sensation as soothing as a hot compress placed on tired muscles. From this vantage point, they could observe the unique flora of the vale more closely. The plants here were unlike any they had seen before. Their stems were thick and pliable, their leaves broad and almost plush, and every single one, from the smallest frond to the tallest, gently swaying stalk, moved in perfect, unhurried synchrony with the terrestrial pulse, a silent, graceful dance of deep accord. It was in this peaceful spot, while lost in the quiet contemplation of this gentle, rhythmic swaying, that the wanderer became aware of another presence. A figure emerged from behind a curtain of broad, deep green leaves, moving with a quiet grace that seemed part of the vale's own gentle nature. This was Elmsworth, a tender of this extraordinary place, their face kind and weathered like ancient, friendly bark, their eyes holding the soft, hazy light of a late summer afternoon. They carried a small earthenware tray, upon which sat 2 steaming cups, their aroma a delightful blend of mild, warming spices and the suggestion of sun-ripened berries. Elmsworth's voice, when they spoke, was as soft as the rustle of the heartwood leaves, a low murmur that perfectly complemented the quiet hum of the vale. "A little something to warm you from the inside, friend," they said, their smile as gentle as the light. The vale offers its own welcome, but a shared cup often helps one to feel it more deeply. The wanderer accepted the cup with quiet murmur of thanks, the ceramic warm and smooth between their hands. The infusion was wonderfully fragrant, its steam carrying scents that spoke of long, peaceful afternoons and simple, wholesome goodness. The taste was as comforting as its aroma, a gentle blend of sweet herbs and a hint of something like toasted oats, with a lingering warmth that spread through the chest like a slow, happy sea. As they sipped, Elmsworth settled nearby on another stone, not speaking, but sharing a comfortable silence that felt as natural and easy as the rhythmic sway of the plants around them. It was a companionship that asked nothing, but simply offered presence, a gentle acknowledgement of shared peace. The warmth from the stone beneath, the infusion within, and the gentle thrum of the earth all around created a cocoon of profound comfort. The wanderer felt their shoulders, often unconsciously tensed from long travel, begin to soften and drop, their breath deepening without any conscious effort, falling into rhythm with the slow cadence of the vale. Even the subtle lines of worry that often etch themselves around one's eyes seemed to smooth away in the gentle atmosphere of this place. It was as if the vale itself were gently stroking away the cares of the world, replacing them with a deep, uncomplicated sense of well-being. Elmsworth, after a comfortable while, pointed with a gnarled, kind finger towards a particularly large, plush-looking plant nearby. "The heart ferns," they murmured, their voice a soft burr. "They feel the cadence most keenly. See how their fronds unfurl in time with it? A slow breath, in and out." And indeed, the wanderer watched as the giant velvety fronds seemed to inhale and exhale, a barely perceptible movement that was nonetheless perfectly attuned to the earth's pulse. It was a mesmerizing sight, a visual representation of the deep peace that permeated this hidden sanctuary. The simple act of sharing that warm drink, of sitting in quiet companionship while observing the gentle life of the vale, deepened the wanderer's sense of having arrived somewhere truly special. It was not a place of grand vistas or breathtaking drama, but of subtle, profound, and deeply nurturing tranquility. The first resonance of the vale's unique magic was not a startling revelation, but a slow, gentle awakening within, a quiet unfurling of peace, much like the heart ferns themselves, breathing in time with the warm, benevolent earth. Chapter 3. Immersion in the Heartwood hum. Drawn by an increasing sense of gentle curiosity and the pervasive, comforting thrum that now felt like a familiar friend, the wanderer, often accompanied by the quiet, reassuring presence of Elmsworth, began to explore the deeper reaches of the vale of resonant heartwood, Each day was an unhurried journey into new alcoves and hidden groves, where the earth's cadence hummed with varying intensities of warmth and rhythm, yet always with that same underlying note of profound, steadfast peace. The very act of walking became a meditation, each soft footfall on the springy ground a connection to the living, breathing land, each inhalation drawing in air thick with the scent of warm soil, sweet grasses, and that ever-present delightful aroma of something akin to freshly baked bread. It was in one such sun-dappled clearing, where the light filtered down in particularly soft, buttery shafts, that they first encountered the luminous loaf blooms in their full glory. These were truly wondrous plants, standing as tall as a small child, with thick, sturdy stems the color of rich gingerbread. Their blooms were not delicate petals in the usual sense, but rather substantial. Velvety lobes of warm ochre, deep russet, and creamy beige, arranged in a comforting, rounded form, much like a perfectly risen cottage loaf. As the wanderer drew near, guided by Elmsworth's gentle gesture, they could feel a distinct warmth emanating from these blooms, and the air around them was rich with that comforting, bready fragrance, now so potent it was like stepping into the heart of the kindest bakery imaginable. Elmsworth, with a soft smile that crinkled the corners of their eyes, reached out a gentle hand and brushed the side of one of the loaf blooms. Instantly, with a sound like a contented sigh or the softest of crackles, the bloom released a visible puff of warm, fragrant air, a miniature cloud of pure comfort that swirled for a moment before dissipating, leaving an even more intense aroma in its wake. "They share their warmth freely," Elmsworth murmured, their voice filled with a quiet affection for these remarkable plants, a little gift from the heart of the vale. The wanderer, invited by a nod, reached out and gently touched another bloom. The surface was incredibly soft, like the finest, warmest velvet, and at their touch, it too released its fragrant sigh, the warm air caressing their hand like a soft blessing. But the wonders of the luminous loaf blooms did not end there. As the gentle afternoon light began to soften further towards evening, the centers of these blooms began to emit a soft, steady glow. It was a light the color of melted butter, warm and inviting, casting no harsh shadows, only a gentle radiance that illuminated the clearing with a cozy, hearth-like luminescence. It was a light that spoke of safety and comfort, of peaceful evenings spent in quiet contentment. The combined effect of their warmth, their unique fragrance, and their gentle light created an atmosphere of almost magical domesticity, a sense of being profoundly at home in the heart of nature. In other groves, they discovered the resonant Heartwood trees themselves, their bark exceptionally smooth, like polished stone yet warm to the touch, in shades of deep plum and soft gray. Standing close to these trees, the wanderer could feel the earth's cadence, not just through the ground, but as a distinct low hum emanating from the very wood of the trees, a resonant vibration that seemed to pass directly into their own body when they leaned against the trunk. It was like resting against the side of a giant purring cat, the sensation deeply soothing, lulling the mind into a state of quiet receptivity. Chelmsworth explained, in their soft, unhurried way, that these trees were the oldest inhabitants of the vale, their roots reaching deep into the earth, acting as conduits for its gentle, rhythmic energy. The cumulative effect of these experiences was a profound immersion in the vale's unique atmosphere, the constant gentle thrumming of the earth, the warmth that seeped from the soil and the flora, the comforting scents and the soft, diffused light all worked in concert to unknot tensions the wanderer hadn't even been aware they were carrying. Their limbs felt pleasantly heavy, yet not tired. Rather, it was the satisfying weight of deep relaxation, the kind one feels after a long, warm bath. Their thoughts, which had once been a busy stream, now flowed with the gentle pace of the vale's own warm, shallow brooks, clear and unhurried. There was a growing sense of being completely enveloped, cradled by the living, breathing land, every sense soothed and satisfied. One afternoon, resting on a bed of particularly thick, springy moss that felt like the softest mattress, the wanderer watched as a tiny iridescent beetle, the color of a twilight sky, slowly climbed a blade of broad grass. The grass swayed gently in time with the earth's cadence, and the beetle clung on, seemingly unperturbed, a tiny jewel in a world of soft greens and warm browns. It was simple sight, yet it held a profound beauty, a testament to the intricate, peaceful life that flourished in this gentle sanctuary. The Heartwood hum was not just around them, but increasingly, it felt as if it were within them too, a quiet, steadying rhythm that was becoming their own. Chapter 4. The Quietude of Being. The days in the vale of resonant Heartwood began to meld one into the next, not with the hurried sameness that can sometimes dull the spirit, but rather like movements in a long, exquisitely peaceful piece of music, each distinct yet flowing seamlessly into a harmonious whole. The passage of time was marked not by clocks or urgent appointments, but by the subtle shifts in the quality of the golden light as it filtered through the canopy of broad, gentle leaves, by the deepening of the buttery glow from the luminous loaf blooms as dusk softly gathered, and by the unchanging, ever-present, comforting thrum of the earth beneath. The wanderer found that the need to do anything had gently faded, replaced by a profound contentment in simply being. Much of their time was spent in quiet observation, a practice that became richer and more rewarding with each passing hour. They would sit for long, peaceful stretches by the side of the clear, shallow stream that meandered through a quieter part of the vale. Its waters, carrying the faintest warmth from the earth, gurgled and murmured over smooth, rounded pebbles of jasper and soft gray, each stone looking as if it had been polished by centuries of gentle care. Watching the way the water eddied and flowed, catching the soft light in fleeting silvery glints, was like watching the thoughts of the vale itself drift by, calm and untroubled. Tiny translucent creatures, no bigger than a dewdrop, navigated the gentle currents, their movements unhurried and serene. Sometimes the wanderer would simply lie upon a patch of the thick, springy moss that carpeted the ground in many places, a living cushion that yielded perfectly to the contours of their body, offering a profound sense of being held and supported. From this vantage point, gazing up through the layers of broad, soft leaves, they would watch the dust motes, tiny, almost invisible particles of pollen or fine earth, dance and swirl in the shafts of diffused sunlight that penetrated the canopy. These motes, illuminated like miniature stars in a daytime sky, moved with a slow, mesmerizing grace, creating ever-changing patterns that seemed to hold a quiet, secret language of their own. It was an idle occupation, yet it filled the wanderer with a sense of gentle wonder at the beauty inherent in the smallest, most overlooked details of the world. The slow unfurling of the giant velvety fern fronds, which Elmsworth had called heart ferns, became a source of quiet fascination. Each day these fronds would open a little more, their deep plush green revealing intricate patterns, their movement so gradual as to be almost imperceptible, yet perfectly attuned to the earth's cadence. It was like watching a slow green thought take form, a physical manifestation of the vale's own peaceful growth and gentle unfolding. The wanderer felt their own inner state begin to mirror this unhurried blossoming, a quiet opening to the peace that surrounded them. Thoughts, when they arose, were no longer the insistent chattering crowd they had once been. Instead, they came like solitary clouds, drifting across a vast blue sky, acknowledged, observed without judgment, and then allowed to pass on, leaving behind a renewed sense of quiet spaciousness. There was no need to analyze or to plan, no urgency to solve or to strive. The gentle, pervasive hum of the earth seemed to absorb any restlessness, transmuting it into a quiet acceptance. The wanderer found a deep sense of peacefulness in this mental stillness, a feeling of being utterly present in each soft, warm, fragrant moment. Elmsworth would often join them, not with many words, but with the comfortable presence of shared understanding. Sometimes they would bring a handful of sun-warmed berries, tart and sweet, their juices staining the fingers a gentle purple, or perhaps a piece of the resonant heartwood, smooth and warm to hold, its faint pulse a comforting reminder of the vale's constant embrace. These small offerings were given and received with a quiet gratitude that needed no elaborate expression. Their conversations were sparse, gentle musings on the color of the light, the scent of a particular bloom, or the contented sigh of a nearby loaf bloom releasing its warm breath. One evening, as the loaf blooms cast their soft, buttery glow around a small clearing, and the air was cool and sweet with the scent of night-damp earth, Elmsworth softly hummed an old, simple tune, a melody as gentle and repetitive as the chirping of crickets. It was a wordless song, yet it spoke of deep roots, of quiet cycles, and of the enduring peace of the vale. The wanderer listened, feeling the melody weave itself into the tapestry of sound, the earth's hum, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of the stream, creating a lullaby that soothed the very edges of the soul. In the profound quietude of being, surrounded by the gentle magic of the vale, the wanderer felt a sense of belonging, of being utterly safe and deeply, profoundly at rest, as if they had finally come home to a place their spirit had always known. Chapter 5. Carrying the Cadence. A time came, not by any sudden decision or external call, but by a gentle, internal knowing, when the wanderer felt a sense of completeness, a deep and quiet saturation of peace that signaled a readiness to move onward, if only for a while. It was not a desire to leave the vale, for its embrace was as comforting as ever, but rather a feeling that the profound restoration received here was now a part of them, a wellspring to carry into the wider world. The weariness that had led them to this hidden sanctuary felt like a distant memory, replaced by a quiet vitality, a lightness of being that hummed in gentle harmony with the vale's own enduring cadence. The warmth of the earth, which had seeped into their very bones, now felt like an inner resource, a gentle fire in the hearth of their spirit. The rhythmic pulse of the cadence, once an external sensation, now seemed to echo softly within their own chest, a steady, reassuring beat that promised calm even when the world outside might offer less. Their breath, once shallow and often unconsciously held, now moved with an easy, profound depth, each inhalation drawing in not just air, but a sense of quiet joy, each exhalation releasing any lingering trace of tension, like a soft, contented sigh. On the morning chosen for their gentle departure, the light in the vale seemed particularly soft and luminous, as if the land itself were offering a fond, peaceful farewell. The luminous loaf blooms pulsed with an especially warm and inviting glow, their bready fragrance a comforting perfume on the still air. Elmsworth met the wanderer near the edge of the vale, their kind eyes holding a gentle understanding that needed no words of explanation. They knew the nature of wanderers, and they knew the nature of the vale, a place of respite, always here, always welcoming for those who sought its quiet heart. Instead of grand farewells, Elmsworth simply held out a small, perfectly smooth seed nestled in the palm of their weathered hand. It was the color of rich, dark earth and surprisingly warm to the touch, pulsing with a faint, almost imperceptible thrum, an echo of the great cadence itself. A seed from a resonant heartwood, Elmsworth said, their voice as soft as falling leaves. It will carry a little of the vale's warmth with you, a reminder of the quiet hum that always awaits. Keep it close, and it will whisper of peace when you need it most. The wanderer accepted the seed, its warmth and gentle pulse, a tangible connection to this extraordinary place, a small, precious anchor of tranquility. As the wanderer took the first few steps away from the heart of the vale, back towards the whispering threshold where their journey into peace had begun, they did not feel a sense of loss, but rather one of quiet gratitude and gentle abundance. The peace of the vale was not something being left behind, but something carried forward, deeply integrated into the fabric of their being. The air gradually grew cooler, the sounds of the outer world began to filter back in, but the inner landscape remained one of profound calm. The gentle thrumming of the heartwood seed in their pocket was a constant, soft reminder. Looking back one last time before the vale's embrace fully receded, the wanderer saw Elmsworth standing quietly, a gentle figure amidst the swaying plush flora, a guardian of peace. A soft smile was exchanged, a silent acknowledgement of the profound, simple gift received and the quiet promise of return. The world beyond the veil might hold its own tunes, some perhaps less gentle, but the wanderer now carried within them a deeper, more resonant song, the cadence of warm earth awakening, a rhythm of profound calm to which they could always attune. The journey onward felt different. The path was still a simple track through quiet lands, but the wanderer's steps were lighter, their gaze softer, their heart attuned to the subtle beauties often overlooked. The memory of the vale was not a sharp longing, but a warm, pervasive glow, like the lingering comfort of a hearth on a cool evening. The unmentioned quiet weariness was gone, smoothed away by the warm breath of the earth, replaced by a gentle resilience. The peace of the vale, its unique sensory tapestry of warmth, soft light, comforting scents, and the ever-present soothing hum, was now a part of their own story, a soft exhalation of pure contentment carried outwards, a quiet blessing upon the world.